That development office of yours is probably, next to your office, is probably the busiest office in the county.
You're absolutely right about that, Bill. That section of our group is running wide open these days. And I guess as the council, we don't make life any easier for them. We keep changing the lot coverage rules in the cottage country, and we keep eyeballing bylaw changes and things of that nature to improve the economy and in Cumberland County. And boy, I'll tell you, they got a lot of stuff coming at them.
No question. And of course, keep in mind that bylaws and things like that, they're living laws, living rules. They're constantly open to change because, well, technology changes things and social demands change things. So, I'm not surprised that these things keep changing. In fact, I would applaud them.
Yep, absolutely. There's things that happened along, way back, and we realized that what happened, what was for us, 5 or 10 or even 15, 20 years ago, now doesn't work so well in today's world, today's economy, and with all the other pressures that we have upon us. So we're always open to change and trying to move things forward and improve things for the citizens.
Now, of course, we can't cover every little detail that took place yesterday at the council meeting. I'm going to give you a little time here to tell us what you think are the important things, the highlights. But before we do that, we've all been kind of waiting with bated breath for your reply to Minister John Lohr. Just to set the record straight to people who weren't with us last time, the minister sent you and all other municipalities a letter urging you to support the bid by the province with legislation in the Province House to support the bid by the province to kind of open up things to the possibility of some more mining and gas extraction, which included fracking. And you and I talked about that the last time, and you were pretty well outspoken about how you didn't like the idea at all, and that you would take the matter to your council, and once the council had a chance to chew on it, you would finally answer his letter. And your letter in reply was read out to the meeting yesterday. In the letter, you didn't say yes, you didn't say no. In fact, your letter specifically said maybe yes, maybe no, and that you want to decide case by case rather than just give him a nod of approval now or a nod of disapproval. And is that really what you want to say?
Absolutely, Bill. We just looked at it, had a great, very great and fulsome conversation with council over the last couple of weeks about this whole thing. And you know what? Just to give them a blank check and say, yeah, we're okay with everything, and let's just, let it all roll, and whatever was not anywhere where council wanted to be. There's a large opportunity for, we feel that, with the focus on green energy and whatever, that there's a lot of opportunity, for example, in the Spring Hill area with geothermal, with methane gas and extraction, perhaps in the Joggins River here. There appears to be a lot of that beneath Cumberland County, and some of these would be very, very good projects. Other ones, such as fracking, has a lot of people worried about what quality and of their wells and what might potentially could happen there. So there's a high level of concern, and you have to recognize that as an elected official, that the people have a level of concern. And so, the easy answer for us was to say to Minister Lohr, listen, whatever you're doing, please let us know, and we'll take it on a case-by-case basis, and we'll decide whether it's something we want to get behind or we don't. And the other, and again, we want to push green energy. We want to push those types of projects. And we feel as though the, geothermal has been, underestimated, underlooked, and underserved in this part of Canada. And if you look at where the money has been spent on geothermal across the country, it's completely lopsided from Ontario west, very little going on in Atlantic Canada. And you know what? I think that's a good time for us to push those types of things.
Now, your letter also recognizes that there is, in fact, as you describe, a rather big potential for gas extraction and so on in I think what you call the Cumberland Basin. I'm just wondering what you mean by that.
Well, it's known that from the data that we receive from the government, that the two biggest beds of gas, of natural gas, shale gas, whatever you want to call it, are under Cumberland County, mostly in the Hastings area and again in the Pugwash area. And those appear to be the two largest deposits in the province.
And of course, you recognize it's there. Somebody starts sniffing around thinking there's dollars under that ground, and maybe an application comes in. Lo and behold, the new law, which, as you probably know, passed the legislature this week, the new law would allow the province to open and entertain an application. The new law also ensures that there be public meetings and an opportunity for the community to have its 2 cents worth. But in the end, are you not concerned that you, the whole council, the entire community could stand up in righteous indignation and say, we don't want it, but the province can just say, well, but we do? Are you not worried about that?
I'm absolutely worried about it, but the other side of that is that, let's have some good conversations and have some discussion about the things that we do like and the things that will work. The end of the day, my level of concern of, any government, doesn't matter whether it's provincial, federal, or otherwise, being able to, so to speak, ram something down the people's throats that they perhaps don't want. At the end of the day, if they decided to do that, you're right. There's really, other than holler and go on and jump up and down about it, there's really very little that we can do to stop it, if that is the way it becomes. But you know what? The people that will do that to us will wear it at the end of the day instead of us. And if they don't want to come to the table and have meaningful conversations about other alternatives, well, you shall reap what you sow.
I think what you're saying is anybody that pushes that on us is bound to lose the next election.
Well, that perhaps could be the case.
Now, you mentioned two locations, shale gas in the Pugwash area and Hastings area. Particularly Hastings, of course, that's getting into a more populated area close to the town of Amherst. When you say Pugwash, we know, we believe at least, that there was some interest on the Gulf Shore Road. Is that where the pockets are?
Not exactly sure, but we looked at, all have been told is it's in the Pugwash area, and I don't know if that's in the Pugwash estuary sort of side of Pugwash or more towards the Gulf Shore. I would think, given the lay of the land, that it perhaps could be more on the Gulf Shore side of it. But interesting enough, too, as a footnote, had a recent meeting with the mayors of Spring Hill and Oxford, and Oxford has come out adamantly against fracking, and as has the town of Amherst, I believe. So I think we're all united in the one front on fracking, that there have to be an awful lot of science and a lot of convincing and so on in order for anybody to get excited about having that happen here locally. So.
And of course, that's a conversation I had with the Premier. He was saying that, we were opposed to all this stuff 10 years ago and beyond, and that he said kind of, surely they must have come up with some technical aspects where they have improved the safety level. And since he said that to me, I've gone looking and doing some research from people who know a whole lot more about the geology of fracking. And, some really high interest out of university study, for example, have said, no, they still have to go in and fracture the rock conditions, and they do it with stuff that comes out of the ground after the fact in a not very tasty version, let's say, and all of which can do damage, and damage that's unseen, and you don't even know the damage is there until it comes back to bite you. So if there is no new technology, I can't imagine anybody saying yes, but that's just my opinion.
I tend to agree with you on that, Bill. There's lots of ways. I know the thrust for the Premier is to, make us self-sufficient on a number of fronts and spur the economy and create a bunch of jobs and all of that. But the reality of that is we can do that in other ways. We can do it with geothermal energy. We can do it with solar energy. We can do it with wind energy. We can do it with methane gas extraction, all of which are much better for the environment and the landscape and the beauty of Cumberland County. It's easy for someone in the HRM to say, oh, well, we don't care about fracking and we don't care about this in Cumberland County. I get that. They don't live here. But they should be concerned about, Cumberland County being one of the last bastions of sheer beauty, on a front where for tourism and all of that. People come here to see the waterfalls. They come here to see the Bay of Fundy tides. They come to see the Northumberland shore and the sand flats and all of that. They come to see the natural beauty of the fields and everything. Why should we take away from that when we don't have to? There are other options.
Your Worship, I second that motion.
Thank you.
Now, you got a few minutes left. I said I'd give you some time to tell us what you thought the highlights were from yesterday's meeting.
Yesterday it was another very good meeting. We got a number of bylaw changes on the rails to get going. Certainly, we wrote another letter to the government about the D-transfer tax increase and the impact that will have on the people of Cumberland County. And you know what? I think that really impacts the people of Cumberland more than any other county in the province of Nova Scotia. When we talk about the new landscape politically and geopolitically, and we want to take down the barriers and open doors and do all of that. And here we have a tax that basically treats people that live in Allac and Port Elgin and places like that, so badly. If they want to, come here and own or buy a family cottage or anything along that line. People that do we have a lot of commerce and business people that move back and forth freely between Amherst and Sackville and Amherst and Port Elgin and Amherst and Moncton. And, it just creates a disproportionate issue for us that, it stymies, economic development, because if you're in Moncton and you say, okay, well, I'm going to build a new plant, where am I? And I'm going to buy some land and I'm going to do a project. And if I go to Nova Scotia, it's going to cost me 11.5% more than it does to stay here in New Brunswick. Those are the things that are worrisome for us.
And of course, it flies in the face of the renewed effort and collective effort of Canada First philosophy, where we want to break down the barriers, not add to them.
Absolutely. There we have the federal candidates and the leaders of the federal parties announcing that they're going to take the tolls off the PEI bridge and we turn around and put a double or D transfer tax, so that those people that would from PEI that would normally have an advantage now or some help now, maybe want to spend more time in Nova Scotia, maybe think about buying a cottage here again. Because they don't have to pay that bridge fee every, twice a week to run back and forth to a cottage in Northport, for example. All of a sudden now we have a D-transfer tax that's many, many thousands of dollars higher than it ever needed to be. So I don't understand the workings of that, quite frankly.
And of course, you made the very, very valid point that it impacts Cumberland County more than anywhere else in Nova Scotia, because Cumberland County is the only land point of Nova Scotia that connects with the rest of Canada. So you don't consider Sydney, where you'd have to take a ferry back and forth to build your business or have your cottage, or Yarmouth, the same thing, or Digby, the same thing, or Halifax by sea or by air. We have that direct connection with New Brunswick, and a friendly, very neighborly connection at that. The number of people I think of that live in New Brunswick and work in Nova Scotia, and we have the same in reverse. And I think often it always used to strike me as being a bit odd that the former mayor of the town of Amherst did his medical practice in Moncton. And, the sharing back and forth across that imaginary line is only such in Cumberland County.
Absolutely. And I've looked at it too, and I've, certainly suggested to them that if we just open it up, even to at least to Atlantic Canada, and allowed the free flow of people back and forth from New Brunswick and PEI and Newfoundland among the provinces, and not be subject to this double tax, this would be that would be a really, really awesome first step for the government to take.